Okay, there we go.
Okay. Well, one of the fun things that came about when trying to get this one set up is that apparently uh, Mike Nebuchadnezzar knows my mother and her siblings and my grandparents longer than I have. He's a whole family friend that goes way back, and I found that out when he said, "Olszewski, are you related to any Seligers?" I'm like, how in the world would you make that connection? And we started doing some sharing that way. So that was a personally a very pleasant and rewarding part of getting this set up. But um, so I'm really excited about this one. We have Michael and Stacy here, and they represent a very unique troop here in my home council of Crossroads of the West in Utah. And I'm going to introduce Mike and then have him introduce Stacy and then turn it over to him. But um, so Mike is part of the Rotary Club of Salt Lake. Previously had been a president of the Rotary Club of Sandy, and professionally he kind of puts his heart out there. He's the president of Mobile Surgery International, which goes into, I think, mostly Mexico right now to provide services for kids, cleft lips and stuff like that, as well as during the pandemic, offering assistance there with COVID. And he's been doing that for 5 years. Before then, he was a senior VP with Operation Smile, doing very similar things. But it's pretty cool when your professional life is kind of mirrors that same service mentality that we embrace here at Rotary. So, Mike, with you, I'll just I'll turn it over to you, and you can introduce Stacy, and then we'll just give you guys the reins. But really appreciate you being here.
Okay, Jared, thank you very much. We've been trying to put this together for some time. I'm glad we finally got the opportunity. As Jared said, I know his uncle Bart very well, and have known his grandparents for many, many years. So it's a pleasure to be on the same Zoom call with you, Jared. In 2008, a extraordinary opportunity to become re-involved with the Boy Scouts of America dropped into my lap. My father is an Eagle Scout. He has since passed away. I'm an Eagle Scout. I have 6 children, 4 boys who are all Eagle Scout recipients. Scouting has been a big part of our family, and I have loved scouting. As a 19-year-old, I was called to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Bangkok, Thailand, and fell in love with Asia and Asian languages and Asian cultures. And after my mission, I got married to a gal from New York City, and we moved back to Thailand, where I worked with Amerasian children born during the Vietnam War. And our first son was born in Bangkok. And after graduate school years later, we ended up moving back again, worked with a public relations agency and the International School of Bangkok. And when I was at International School of Bangkok, ISB, I was asked to be the Cub Master of a multicultural, multiracial, multinationality Cub Scout troop. And we just had a blast with kids from all over the planet whose families were living in Thailand at the time. So fast forward, to 2008, I'm back in Salt Lake City, minding my own business, when I got a call out of the blue. It was February of 2008, and a woman from the state of Utah called and said, "We've got refugees arriving from Myanmar, and nobody speaks their language. They're Karen and Karenni, which are 2 hill tribe groups in eastern Myanmar or Burma. And we've got a family, and they speak Thai, but we don't have anybody who speaks Thai. And we understand you speak Thai, that you've lived in Thailand for 12 years. And she knew me. And she said, "We need you to interpret." I said, "Well, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night. It's snowing. So how about I come tomorrow and help you out?" And she said, "No, we need you tonight." And so I got out of bed. My wife said, "Where are you going? It's snowing out." I said, "Well, I'll be gone for about an hour. There's a refugee family that needs some help interpreting. Well, that has turned into a 15-year adventure because I drove down to South Salt Lake and met this family who was had just arrived from Myanmar, and they had a million questions and didn't speak any English. And so I got involved with this group of Karen and Karenni refugees who had been relocated to Salt Lake City. And one thing led to another, and I was involved more than I thought I would be. And there was a man by the name of Bob Roylance, and he was serving an inner city mission for our church. And he called me one day and he said, these boys are getting into more trouble than we can possibly deal with. And I'm spending more of my time at the juvenile detention center than I am at church because they are robbing stores. They're involved with gangs. They're using drugs and alcohol. How would you like to start a Boy Scout troop and show these boys a better way to be involved in life? And so I agreed. And we started the Utah Refugee Scout Troop, and off it went. Well, by the time this all happened, it was the spring of 2008, and our first camp out was up in Little Cottonwood Canyon. And our family has a cabin up in Albion Basin where we took these boys for our very first overnight. We thought that we'd start with a cabin before we started with tents. And it was still quite cold. There was a lot of snow on the ground. And we told them to wear warm shoes and warm clothing. And they all came in flip-flops. Stacy, I think they still show up in flip-flops. But we took them on a little hike. And we hiked to the top of the Sugarloaf Lift. And my son, who's the one who's going to Langley Air Force Base, he was with us. He was 10 at the time, and he came running up to me and he said, "Dad, they're all catching squirrels." And I said, they can't catch squirrels. I've never caught a squirrel. I grew up in these mountains, and how do you catch a squirrel? And I looked around, and every single boy had a squirrel in his hand, wrapped in a sock. And I went up to one of the boys and I said, "How are you doing this?" And those long bamboo poles that are left by the ski patrol and, used to mark rocks in the winter were lying on the rocks. And they would stand motionless and wait for one of these pot guts to come out of a hole. They'd whap it with the bamboo pole, stun it, run over and grab it. And some of them had socks on with their flip-flops so their feet wouldn't get cold. And they took their socks and they wound the socks around the squirrel. So the squirrel was like a mummy. So the squirrel couldn't, scratch them. And I said, "Guys, what are you going to do with all these squirrels?" And he says, "Oh yeah, we're going to eat them." And they wanted to take them back to the cabin and roast them over the grill. And, the thought of burning squirrel on a grill just sent shivers down my spine. And I said, "Listen, if you let the squirrels go, we will have some great hamburger." And so they let all the squirrels go. We went back to the cabin. We roasted hamburgers. And it started an adventure that has just gotten richer and richer and richer. And as more boys came, as more families came, we built a troop of about 50 boys. And they were primarily Karen and Karenni. And we took them back to the National Scout Jamboree. And then we were invited to go to the World Scout Jamboree in Yamaguchi, Japan, a number of years ago. I can't remember the exact year, but we were invited to go to Yamaguchi, and we traveled with 18 of our boys, flew to San Francisco to Tokyo, and then took the bullet train down to Yamaguchi. And these boys had, just the time of their life, connecting with scouts from all over the world. And when we arrived, they realized that most everybody in the Jamboree was speaking English as a second language. And for the first time, they didn't feel like second-class citizens, because what held them back in Utah was their inability to speak English fluently. And they realized that this was not just some local organization, but a worldwide movement of young men and young women from all over the world devoted to the ideals of scouting. And it got them really serious about pursuing their merit badges, their advancements, and working towards their Eagle Scout Award. Well, I made a big mistake when I was in Yamaguchi and I started posting pictures on Facebook. And when I got back from the World Scout Jamboree, I got a call from the governor, Governor Gary Herbert. And he said, "We've been watching on Facebook what you've done with these boys. We'd like you to create a troop for all the refugee groups." So from that invitation, we expanded and picked up the East Africans. So we called it the Swahili branch. And these were all the kids from East Africa and Ethiopia, Kenya, Eritrea. Were in that troop. We had 2 Muslim troops, primarily from Somalia, Sudan, and South Sudan. We had a Nepalese troop. We had a Marshall Islands troop. And interestingly, we had all these boys whose families were leaving the Marshall Islands because you may know that with climate change and oceans rising, the Marshall Islands is in danger of actually being inundated with water. I think the highest point is maybe 2 feet above sea level. So a lot of Marshall Island climate change refugees are coming and being resettled in Salt Lake City. So we had a Marshall Islands troop, and we had a Thai Laotian troop. So at one point, we had about 300 boys in our Utah Refugee Scout troop. And I just want to share a picture for a minute of let's see, that's not the one I want to show. Here it is. So we had an activity. It was a court of honor at Tracy Lodge in Mill Creek Canyon. And this is one of my favorite photos. Right in the center
Mike,
is Charles Dahlquist.
Mike, we're
You
not
may
seeing
know
the
him.
picture. We're not seeing
You're
the
not
picture.
seeing
We
it?
see just your browser. So you might need to reshare and just show the picture.
Hang on. You're not seeing it?
No, I think you shared Chrome, so you just need to share again and then choose whatever
Okay,
your.
it's a wonderful photo of kids from all over, from all these different countries, up at Camp Tracy. And I think we had like 15 Eagle Scout Awards at the time. And that was the height of our organization. And then the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints decided to stop chartering scout troops. And so many of the troops went away, and we had a reduction in our numbers. And at the same time, they admitted girls. And we were thrilled because we knew that most of our young scouts, young men, had sisters who had always wanted to participate in scouting. And, I love that idea because I have 2 girls along with my 4 boys, and my 2 girls had always wanted to participate in scouting. And so here was the perfect opportunity for us to fulfill that dream. And so Stacy appeared on the scene, and she is one of the most motivated, eager women I know. And she is our scoutmaster over the girls. And at the time she started pulling together a troop for the girls, the kids started complaining that they were no longer refugees. They had received their American citizenship, and so we changed it to the Utah International Scouts. We have a scout van. We have 2 scout trailers. There are, Stacy, how many are there? There are about 20 scout leaders, 2 scoutmasters, and the rest are assistant scoutmasters. And we provide these scouts with as many opportunities as we possibly can. Obviously, we are fully engaged in the scout program, and we meet once a week. We have campouts every month. We still take them on winter campouts. They still show up in flip-flops. We've given them winter shoes and winter hats and winter coats, and they will still come in t-shirts and flip-flops. And it just is part of their DNA to dress this way. But they love the ideals of scouting, and they have excelled. When we take them to Klondike Derby, they usually take first prize because they're so creative in what they're able to make with their hands. And the first wave were so good at living in the wild. They had come from refugee camps in Thailand where they lived along the Thai-Burma border. And if they wanted protein for their family, literally they would sneak out of the camps and they would go into the jungle, and with slingshots, they would bring home rabbits and squirrels and snakes and birds. And we saw this firsthand. We had a camp out up at Bear Lake, I think in like our second year. And all these scout officials at the Great Salt Lake Council had heard about these scouts and they wanted to meet them. So I was with our kids and we were at a campfire, and Charles Dahlquist and a lot of the council executive leaders came down, and we didn't know that they were coming. And they got to our campfire, and all the scouts were cooking a different animal. And Charles looked at me and said, "What are they cooking on the fire?" And there was a snake, there was a squirrel, there was a rabbit, there was a magpie, and they would roast them and then squirt sriracha sauce, which is a spicy sauce that you may have heard of, and they would eat them. And that first wave of scouts who came directly from the jungle really knew how to live in the wilds. They would go out, and with a slingshot, they could nail a rabbit 100 yards away without any problem. They could shoot birds out of the sky. We did have to teach them that we probably didn't want them shooting birds out of the sky and eating them, that we preferred them to buy chicken at Costco and get their meal that way. But I can't tell you how much fun we have had with these scouts. So
Mike,
enter in our girls, and Stacy, who is an executive with a Lucid Technologies in Salt Lake City, appeared on the scene and became the Scoutmaster. And I'm going to hand things over to her to talk about how the girls have rallied to the cause and become some of the most remarkable scouts in the country.
Thanks, Michael. And yeah, I can't really imagine Michael minding his own business. I'm sure he was helping somebody, but I'm so glad you got involved in the Scout program. And as subsequently, it's been a good opportunity for me. I'm single, I don't have kids, and this has been just a life-changing experience. These kids have become like my family. And so it's been really a good experience for me. I knew Saborn, who Michael worked with, who had been working with the Boy Scouts troop, and I'd met a family through that process. And there was a girl in that family who said, "Yeah, I just stay home all day and I watch my younger siblings, and it would be neat to do what my brother does. I would love to go out and adventure, but there's not a program for us." And a few months later, Saborn said, "They're opening Scouts to girls. We're starting a troop. Do you want to be involved?" And it was really a no-brainer. And we had our first activities, and, quite a different experience than Michael's. The girls from that grew up in refugee camps in Thailand were protected and taught never to go outside. And that custom has followed them to the United States. And so most of these girls do not go outside. It is not safe. It is not comfortable. It is not easy. And so stay in your home, hang out on your phone, or just with your family. And every time they would get in our car we'd give them rides. And what do you like to do? I just sit in my room. I just sit on my phone, It's so aggravating. But we just started doing activities with them. We started taking them to campouts. We started, just doing different scouting activities. And we have seen incredible growth, and we've seen them come to life. These are really quiet and shy kids who often speak as quietly as they can. And Michael likes to tell them that I can't hear you. I need you to speak louder. And he teases them, and they love it. And they're starting to find their voice, and they're starting to find their place in their community, and to belong, and to really own what's different about them and be proud of it, but also fit and feel like they're welcome. So I'll just tell a couple of quick stories, some of my favorite things. These kids, they didn't go outside and they didn't know how to swim. And swimming is a life-saving skill, and none of them knew how to swim. And so we would go every other week. Our scout activity was taking them to the pool, and many of them just could not do it. And one who was our first senior patrol leader, her name is Echuna, and she said, I don't swim, I sink. It's just not something that I can do. And we just kept working with her. We take her to pool after pool and we all work together. And at one point it just clicked for several of them. About a year and a half into the program, several of the older girls, it started to click, and she passed her swim test. And fast forward about 6 months, and she actually got a job to be a lifeguard at a local swimming pool. And the neat thing about that is that she has the confidence to be a lifeguard, which would really actually be kind of scary for me, but she's also bringing home income to her family. And so really, really a big transition in my eyes of what's happened in her life. I was taking one of the girls to this butterfly activity this week, and she said, yeah, the girls all want to go camping this year in the summer, just us. And, we're just kind of thinking, I was like, oh, you're just going to go camping, and they're like, yeah, we've bought a tent, because now, they've learned to get skills and jobs. And she said, yeah, and I guess I'm in charge of food. And I was like, do you feel like you can do that? She's like, well, yeah, you guys taught us how to do that. I now feel like I can go on a camp out and I can make food. And, it's just really neat to think of these kids who stayed inside all day, who never were taught to leave or enjoy the outdoors, who without adults are planning a friend's camp out, these older high school girls. And so I was really, really proud of that. One other story, we have a scout named Safi. She's Muslim. She's from Africa. She joined. She is just so much light. She's just the biggest personality. And she came to the troop and she asked me, she said, why would I do scouts? I'm in student government. I'm in all these leadership things. I have a lot of opportunities for myself. And I said, people do scouts to learn skills and to learn how to have a better character. And I said, and if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it, but we want you here. So come and try it out a little bit. And she came and she tried, and she came to camp, and she spent a week with other scouts who were similar to her previously, they're refugees. And when I asked her after camp was over, I said, do you still like scouts? You want to do this? And she said, I love this program, because this is the only place where I go and I don't feel different at all. I feel like I belong here. And I feel like even though I'm a different race and from a different country than many of these scouts, we all feel like the same group, and we feel like a family. And so it's just been a really, really beautiful experience. And just watch these girls flourish and grow and be there for each other and get jobs and contribute to their communities. And I think they're doing great things, and they're going to do great things. We have many leaders who are working professionals who are teaching them that you can do more than maybe what you think you can do and what you're being told you can do. And they're starting to believe that. So that's been my experience, and appreciate the opportunity to share it with you.
Great. Thank you, guys.
We thought we'd open it up for questions at this point. And
While we're doing that, I think I found the picture, Mike, that you were talking about on Charles' Facebook, and then I have one of the girl troop. So I'm going to share real quick, just so
okay.
So I believe this is your troop, right, Stacy?
Yeah, that's our troop, maybe headed to camp one year.
And then I think this is that photo. Right.
That's the photo.
So
Jared, you're a wizard.
I know how to stalk properly on Facebook. That's what it is. So
I mean, isn't that a wonderful display of the diversity of scouting? I just love that photo.
So
And,
Jared,
you know-
did you earn that merit badge growing up, Jared? That stalking merit badge?
Stalking
it was
merit
a lot
badge?
harder when I was growing up, pre-internet.
So the wonderful thing is I look at these faces and, you know, all these kids graduated from high school and went on to college. Because they were refugees, they had access to grants, U.S. government grants. They went to community college. They went to the University of Utah. They went to Brigham Young University. They went up to Utah State. The ones that didn't go to college, took jobs to support their families. The tradition with Corinne and Corinne is that at a certain age, you take over as the breadwinner. Our first Eagle Scout got a job at a meat packing plant up in Logan, which is north of Salt Lake City, about an hour and a half. And he's now a supervisor over 1,000 workers, primarily refugees, who work in this meat packing plant, Miller Packing in Logan. And they're studying law, they're studying medicine, they're studying business. They're getting good jobs. They're serving in the military. A handful of them have gone on missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But our troops, both the boys and the girls, encompass Buddhists and Muslims and Baptists and Protestants and Catholics and Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists. And I have never seen a finer group of people in this country than these refugee scouts. What a joy, what a pleasure and honor it has been to work with them.
So, Michael, are you still actively working with the troops?
Oh yes, not quite as much as Stacy. Stacy's in the trenches. My primary job is fundraising. We have convinced our state legislature to provide funding, and so we do receive a grant from the Utah State Legislature of $100,000 each year to run this troop, and that allows us to do some extra special things. We take them to national jamborees and World Scout jamborees. We're in the middle of fundraising to take them to the World Scout Jamboree next summer in South Korea. And we got to keep a van running. We've got a scout van that was donated by a friend of mine. And we've got 2 trailers, and we just found a new warehouse to store all of our stuff. We've got more sleeping bags than you can shake a stick at. And we found a place where we store all of this equipment, and always utilize our scouts in, helping to organize and take things out and return things. And so, yes.
I could add one thing. What's unique about this troop, I don't know if other troops are like this, but it is 100% leader led with very little, if none, adult parent involvement. So we are providing the sleeping bags, the warm clothes, the hiking shoes, anything that we take them to do, we are providing the gear, the transportation, the supervision, the help with merit badges, the help with every aspect of it. It's interesting because us as women, we didn't do any of this. We're guessing and we're doing okay, not great. But it's been an interesting thing to bring other scoutmasters from, male troops in the United States and them who are helping us out. And one guy just said, we just leaned on the parents a lot and we just didn't have to provide all these things. So it's just been a unique experience as a troop, and we've made it work. And thanks to Michael's work to get us the funding to do that.
So these scouts are spread out all throughout the Salt Lake Valley. When we first started the troop, they were all living in one big apartment block. So it was pretty easy to just go with a scout van and pick them all up and head out. Well, as their parents, held down jobs, saved money, they began to move out and buy homes. And we start about an hour and a half before Scout starts with our leaders driving around the Salt Lake Valley, picking up in North Salt Lake and Rose Park and Kearns and Granger and West Valley City, Jordan, South Jordan, Cottonwood, South Salt Lake. Takes us about an hour and a half to round them up and bring them to Scouts. And then we have our Scout meeting from 7 to 8, 8:30. Then it's another hour and a half to take them all home again. So Tuesday nights are a big commitment for our Scout leaders, but these are extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. And you can see the difference in the lives these people are making for themselves.
Michael, who's the chartering organization for these units?
So we created the Utah International Scouts Parents Association with a board, created a 501c3. So we chartered ourselves. It was chartered by the church prior to the church pulling out, and then with a little help from some attorneys, we put together our own organization. And so now the Great Salt Lake Council folded, and now we're in the Crossroads Council of the West, which is a fantastic council, great leadership there. And, Utah was the home to thousands of scouts, and we've got diminished numbers, but certainly not diminished interest for the scouting program.
So I'm kind of curious, how do you recruit adults, leaders that aren't parents, to come and be involved?
Okay.
Through Rotary. Actually, two of our leaders, the last time Saborn and Saborn is actually a Cambodian refugee who grew up in the United States after his family fled Cambodia during the killing fields. We went and spoke at a Rotary in South Salt Lake, and they had two junior Rotarians in college, and they're now working with us as leaders. Word of mouth,
We post
primarily.
Michael, we post through that Serve Refugee site that has a lot of opportunities for people in Utah to find how to serve refugees.
Okay.
And so we'll post pictures of the girls troop and say, any women who are looking for an opportunity to impact young lives and do things outdoors, here's the commitment, call Stacy. And so that's how we found a lot of our leaders, and it's been really neat. And then just some of my friends, our different friends, word of mouth, have been interested in what we're doing and wanted to get involved.
Very cool.
We are trying to restart our Muslim troops. And I've got a handful of Muslim adults who said that they would serve as leaders. And we're waiting for the right time to restart that. We'll probably do that next spring.
It was interesting to me to see Charles Dahlquist in your picture there. He chaired the National Relationships Committee that I sit on. Charles is a good friend, but it was good to see his picture in your presentation.
Well, he's been very supportive, and of his leadership ability and
Oh yeah,
to motivate others. And I've drawn a lot of strength from him. Other thoughts or questions?
Well, this one's a little off topic, but Stacy, is Preston your brother?
Yeah, do you know him?
Yeah, we're good friends. We've worked together. We've traveled the world together. And if I remember right, at one point you were in like corporate training and training development. Is that still what
Yeah.
you're doing?
Yeah, I'm a director, not an executive, just to clear the air.
So
We worked together at Lucid for a long time. He just left. So
I can't remember if I knew you came in one time to team, and we were talking about that. But yeah, Preston and I go back to Market Star days, so he's a great man. So
So glad to hear. He's awesome. I'll
yeah,
tell
see, all these connections I didn't know I had before this presentation. So the world is a small place.
Mhm.
Pam, did you have a question?
I don't really have a question, just a comment, just to say thank you to Michael and Stacy for all they do. I think we all do this because of the value we see in the opportunities and growth that the kids have. But this truly is a unique experience and opportunity for these young people. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing that I felt really strongly at camp as people came up to me and said, what a cool opportunity you're giving these kids. I felt like, you know what? What a cool opportunity these kids are giving your scouts and you guys as scout leaders to know people from different cultures and different countries and see of their light and see of their goodness. And I just believe that so wholeheartedly that they are changing our lives. And it's a really beautiful thing. So.
Amen.
Jeremy, I see you came on camera. Do you have a question?
No, my computer decided not to work tonight, so I thought I'd just sit on my phone.
So I was talking to someone here in Colorado several years ago now, who also worked with a troop of refugees. And he was saying that in his group, they had some behavioral issues when they would go to camps and such. Do you find any of that
Sometimes,
sometimes?
I mean, there are
Anything
sassy
like
teenage girls.
he presented it like they were special kinds of challenges, like they were catching squirrels for dinner kind of challenges.
Our girls are just more loud and obnoxious. So that's it. It's not like, sometimes it's like, girls, you need to be more respectful. So we're teaching them that and they're doing a lot better. I think maybe Michael, the boys earlier had some of those different challenges you talked about.
Well, the Karen and the Karenni, their culture is really unique. I mean, they stick together. And when we first started the scout troop, we were just taking anybody who wanted to go. And it was really fun to see the older boys caring for younger brothers. And they had no qualms at all about taking their younger brother. I mean, when I grew up, my older brother, he didn't want to be anywhere near his younger brothers. And that's sort of the culture that we have in the United States. And that is just the opposite. They have what they call Friendship Day, and they celebrate Friendship Day by eating things that stick together. So they serve sticky rice where all the rice is, clumped together, and they serve grapes because grapes come in clusters, and they eat bananas because bananas grow in bunches, and they tie strings around their wrists to indicate their friendship for one another. And that's a really beautiful tradition that they have. I think that discipline problems, it was harder with the Muslim troops. They come from a much harsher background. Actually, this summer, 3 of our former scouts were murdered in a gang-related shootout. They would have been coming home from a camp out with us. The night we came home from Camp Lowell up in the Tetons, 3 boys, 14, 15, and 16, were shot and killed by another boy. They come from a violent background. And it's what I love about scouting is that it pulls them out of that environment. It pulls them away. And when we started the scout troop, we were going into an apartment compound that was probably one of the most dangerous places in Salt Lake City. And the police told us not to go in there after dark because the crime was so bad, the drugs and the alcohol. And within a couple of years of forming this scout troop, all that element had moved away. And the chief of police of the South Salt Lake Police said that crime in the area had dropped by 67% because of the work that we were doing. After school programs like ours were driving that element out of these areas. So it's a real game changer for these kids and for their families. But, you know, yeah, misbehavior, it's childish misbehavior.
Thanks.
You bet.
Ruddy, is it Ruddy? I see you joined us. You want to introduce yourself and
Yeah, it's John Hunnings. This is a different computer I'm using right now, so I don't
Okay.
have my name on here. But no, I the presentation is very interesting. Sorry, I only got to hear half of it. But me and Mr. Pat Curley were talking the other day, and he was discussing the Rotary Club here, and I was